quarterback.
Building the perfect quarterback. All right, I like this. We tend, this comes around every now and again, and we spend all draft time talking about the strengths, the flaws in each one of these guys, without ever sort of evaluating. All right, let's put all these sliders to 100. What does that look like? Like,
Yes.
what is the perfect quarterback prospect come along? Because particularly a couple of years ago, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be that guy, basically, right? The best quarterback since Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, John Elway, however far back you want to go. So what does this thing look like with all of the sliders maxed up to 100?
Let me first say, when it's like those generational prospects, we're not saying that they are for sure going to be the greatest at their respective positions at all times. It means that as prospects, like as they are college quarterbacks right now, to me it's more like they have the highest floors of any of the quarterbacks we've seen in the past decade or whatnot. It means just like the certainty with which we know they're going to be good is the highest since Andrew Luck. That's how I felt about Trevor Lawrence. Not saying he's going to be the GOAT, but that the certainty with which I know he's going to be good is higher than anyone else. And so with that in mind, going through and building the perfect quarterback prospect from this year's class, and obviously the perfect quarterback prospect with NFL players, I think it's important anytime you are looking at college prospects to contextualize what you're seeing. I think a lot of people will see a guy dominating college and be like, oh, it's easy to get lost in the hype and compare them to the athletes that he's on the football field right there and lose context of what the athletes at the NFL level look like and fall in love with the guy and say, oh, he's going to be so down at the next level when everyone at the NFL level, not everyone, but a lot of guys at the NFL level look like Von Miller, run like Von Miller, don't play like Von Miller because there's a lot that goes into the position that's more than just being high-end athletes. So it's always important to contextualize what you're seeing on a collegiate football field with what the elite looks like at the NFL to properly compare. So do you want to go first with your NFL ones then so we can give context to the collegiate level?
Yeah, let me go. I've built this guy. I asked you for the components we're going to use, and then I will give you what I think the current NFL version of each one of these things is.
Ooh,
and
I'm looking at it. You may want to revamp one of these after last night, but go ahead.
That's true. That is true. Arm strength.
Yeah.
I think Justin Herbert has the best arm strength in the functional arm strength in the NFL right now. I know everyone's going to talk about Josh Allen and the fact that if you wanted to throw a football through something, you would probably line up Josh Allen before anybody else. If you wanted to throw a football from a weird-ass angle running in the opposite direction, you're probably going to want Mahomes. But I think in terms of functional arm, Justin Herbert has the best composite of any of these guys.
I agree. I do think he has the strongest arm in the NFL. Now, again, I think you hit the nail on the head in that there's different areas where other guys may succeed or may look more impressive, but from the pocket to ball where it wants to go, give me Justin Herbert.
He has more throws than any other quarterback I can think of where the defense misplays it because the ball travels differently than any other quarterback. Like, again, Josh Allen has some of those. Mahomes is able to make some of those weird Brett Favre throws that you're not supposed to be able to make, but Herbert has more of those throws per game than anybody else.
Yes, I agree. I'm with you there.
All right. Accuracy for me is Joe Burrow. I think he's the most pinpoint quarterback in the NFL at this point. Obviously, you go back far enough, it would have been probably Drew Brees for a long time. But I think Joe Burrow is the guy right now.
Yeah, that one 100% agree. I think you'd be overthinking it to go anywhere else.
Decision-making, I had Tom Brady. And, okay, that didn't happen yesterday when, things went south for the Bucs and their playoff hopes. I still think that, presented with a functional offense, Tom Brady probably is the best mental processor and ability to read a defense, put the ball where it needs to go in the NFL. So I'm sticking with Tom Brady, even though he just undermined my entire thing.
Yeah, I think if you want to give the caveat, hey, Brady 2 years ago, it was obviously him. Now, with what we know now, if he is really declined, I think Mahomes is the other guy there that you would go is the number 2 in terms of decision making. Obviously, I think he was fourth lowest turnover worthy play percentage, and then top 5 big time throw.
Right.
Second highest great quarterback. It's hard to go against Mahomes in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Pure athleticism, I think, has to be Lamar Jackson. Maybe there's a couple of other guys if you look at it in a slightly different way, but his ability to just move is different from any other quarterback.
Yeah, at his healthiest, it's Lamar Jackson.
And then frame, which I am taking to mean just sort of pure size, physical dominance, is Josh Allen. He's the closest thing to Cam Newton in today's NFL of just being bigger, faster, stronger than everybody trying to stop him.
Yeah, the guys, and that matters to a degree, like the guys that, Big Ben had a great frame for a quarterback, and that helped him when guys were hanging on him.
Yeah.
And he got it off. When guys hang on a Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, guess what? They go down. They can't make plays still.
Right.
When guys are all over him, Big Ben can, Josh Allen can. It does help. It is
you're talking
value
about
add at the NFL level.
Yeah, two ends of the spectrum, two extremes. But like the difference between a guy getting his hand on Josh Allen and a guy getting his hand on Tua, I mean, it's not the same, right? Josh Allen, the chances are he's going to bust out of that. Tua is getting ragdolled to the floor like a child. Like, it's a huge difference. So obviously it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's absolutely a massive advantage.
Yes. So agree with all those. Let's go to this year's class then.
Yep.
Go to arm strength, where I'm going to go with Kentucky's Will Levis. He has an interesting release, I'll say. He short arms it. He Philip Rivers is it a little bit. He's got kind of the short arm, doesn't get a full cock back, and it's quick because of that. It floors me that he puts as much heat on it as he does, but he's probably just I wouldn't put him in the Justin Herbert, Josh Allen tier, but I'd say just a tick behind that. Like, he has a cannon. He's said on Actually It's Just Football, he said he can throw 80 yards through the air. Mm-hmm. He has throws on his tape where he gets about 65, 70 on lines that he's got an elite NFL arm. So Will Levis, your top arm strength. But I think Anthony Richardson, the Florida quarterback, also in that conversation. But those two guys are clear, like, tier above the likes of someone like a Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Those guys are solid arms, not elite arms.
There's a couple of videos of him out there just looking like a human jugs machine, just firing passes one after the other to these guys running routes. It looks pretty fun.
He has a very aesthetically pleasing throwing motion. And, like, when the ball comes out, like you said, it looks like a jugs machine. It just looks easy.
It just looks perfect. All right, accuracy.
Accuracy in this year's class is difficult. I think Bryce Young's obviously, to be quarterback one of the PFF draft board, you're going to be pretty damn accurate, and he is. I think Tanner McKee, the Stanford quarterback, is very accurate when you just, take throw for throw into account. But I think CJ Stroud, this is really what separates him. Ohio State quarterback. I think he's probably the most accurate quarterback in this draft. You saw that in the Georgia game. Why I'm very high on him. CJ Stroud probably gets the slight nod, but there's a lot of guys. There's a few guys in the running that I put right there.
And it's now officially declared. There was talk that he might go back to Ohio State for one last go around.
That was a little insane, but I think that's going to be, at least for maybe not guys who are top 5 picks, but the fringe first rounders. It's going to be a conversation. That's going to be more and more of those guys are actually going to come back to school, because it makes sense even financially for them to do so.
This wild world of NIL, it actually makes some sense. Also, for some of these guys, you can actually now almost strategize which is the best draft to come out.
Yes,
like, I can go back, earn $5 million this year, and come out in a weaker draft class, and then potentially go, 1, as opposed to now. Not like that wouldn't have been the case from the sounds of it next year for CJ Stroud.
Exactly. That's why it didn't make sense, is because this was the draft class to come out. Or actually last year was the draft class to come out, but this was.
But like next year, that might be a conversation for some of these guys. Like, if you are one of the top 5 quarterbacks next year, you might be looking at this and saying, all right, there's 4 other guys that are amazing. Maybe next year is the year I actually want to come out. How much can I get by staying in school for another year?
Yeah, if you're not Drake May or Caleb Williams, Drake May, the North Carolina quarterback, Caleb Williams, USC, you're probably going to want to come back to school, because those guys are going to be the number 1, number 2 overall picks. I'd be difficult for me to see someone leapfrogging those guys at this point. They're insane.
All right, decision making. Who's your Tom Brady?
Decision making. This is where Bryce Young separates himself, in my opinion. Alabama quarterback, Heisman winner. He has not only, if we would have had like playmaking on here, that's like truly what, in my opinion, separates Bryce Young from the pack. He really has the creativity, but he also protects the football. And he takes kind of those calculated good chances when he is going to put the ball, I don't want to say up for grabs, but in harm's way, where it's not necessarily open, but he knows when to take those chances and go attack favorable situations. So Bryce Young, decision-making, he's the guy.
It's amazing.
It's not a debate in this class.
It's amazing how few mistakes he has like on his tape in the last couple of years. And even half of those mistakes that he does have are ones where you're like, I'm okay with that. Like, that's a risk. I endorse that risk, as opposed to, well, that was just stupid. Like, even half the mistakes he made are sort of, I don't want to say you'd positively grade them, but you'd rather that than not even taking that chance half the time. Athleticism.
This one's Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson's unique. He's going to be the guy that is the wild card in this year's draft class. There's no one knows. He's played so little football that no one knows, but he is 6'4", 240, and he outruns safeties. I'm curious what he's going to run. I don't think it's going to be Justin Fields-esque, but I do think at that size he could run. It's Cam Newton-esque,
right?
Where he could run low 4.5s, but that guy at low 4.5s, 240 run low 4.5s is insane.
Yeah.
240 running low 4.5s is a load to bring down. So yeah, Anthony Richardson, special suddenness for the quarterback position.
And then presumably, given that description, he's also the guy.
He's the frame.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. He is where he's going to get drafted is because he's 6'4", 240 with his arm and with his frame and with his athleticism.
I mean, that makes him fascinating because he's now your frame guy, your athleticism guy, and was right up there as sort of 1A with the Will Levis arm strength thing. So 3 out of our 5 requisites for being a perfect quarterback prospect is Anthony Richardson, and he's the guy nobody's going to talk about for being, the top 5 quarterback versus the other guys.
Yeah, because on tape, 53% completion.
Yeah, I mean, the other two things are quite important.
The accuracy, decision making are like TB. If he didn't have arm strength, athleticism, frame, if he didn't have those 3, if he was, let's say, who's like a Joe Burrow in those 3, let's say. I don't know. I'm trying to think of even worse right now, but if he was just average in those 3, he's not drafted and not even talked about as a quarterback prospect and may not even start at the collegiate level. So it is a unique conversation, but for a guy who's played, again, so little football, it's almost like an NBA lottery pick. Kind of like how Trey Lance was, where it's like, man, what he could become.
Yeah.
Hey, what he could become. But I do think he's a little more advanced in some regards than Trey Lance. That's maybe an unfair comp to put on him. But, yeah, Richardson's unique dude.